invocation by Councilmember Kendra Shaw. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please pray with me. The world has never been a simple, easy place, and this time is no different. Every day we read stories of violence, disease, injustice, and cruelty, and are faced with a choice. What will we do today to make the world a better place for those around us? Lord, please remind us to be kind. Remind us that we do this work every week to make Billings a better place for our neighbors and friends. We ask for your blessing in this endeavor and with all of our decision-making tonight. Amen.
Now, Denise, would you please call the roll?
Sure, Mayor.
Excuse me, Mayor. Point of order. I think Scott Hurd has his audio on.
Oh, okay. Scott, if you can hear this and can put your mute on, that would be great. You can go ahead and continue, Denise.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Shaw.
Here.
Yakowicz.
Present.
Nice.
Here.
Ewalt.
Here.
Joy.
Present.
Shariki.
I am here.
Barrington.
Present.
Ronning.
Here.
Boyette.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Mayor Cole.
Here. Our first item of business tonight is our COVID-19 update from the JIC, as it's known, the Joint Information Center. Melanie Schwartz with Big Sky Economic Development will be presenting that for us tonight. And I'll just make a comment for anybody who might be watching that our City Administrator, Chris Kukulski, is not with us tonight. Seated in that seat is our Assistant City Administrator, Kevin Iflin. Kevin, before we turn it to Melanie, would you just maybe tell us what Chris is doing tonight? Maybe he's on a beach in some beautiful beach someplace. Is that true?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm sure he wishes he was, but unfortunately he's up in Helena attending a dinner event for some legislative activities that we have going on regarding Department of Correction transfers out of our local county jail. So very important meeting that he had to attend up there to kind of voice some of the city's concerns regarding that. So he should be back tomorrow afternoon. He'll do a few more legislative items while he's up there and then be back tomorrow.
Great. Thank you very much. Melanie Schwartz, what can you tell us?
Well, Mayor and Council, thank you for having me again this evening. I just wanted to give you a quick update on COVID-19 and the vaccine distribution that we're working on for the community. This week, our community did receive significantly fewer doses than last week. We went from 2,100 last week to 1,175, and St. Vincent did not receive any vaccine this week. This is an issue at the state level, and they're working through it, but it had to do with some rotations and some different things regarding the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. So that was the reason for that. Because of this uncertainty and fluctuation in supply, we continue to just offer a week-to-week update. That press release is coming out of Riverstone Health every Monday that kind of gives the amount of doses that we have and when the clinics will be for the community. And so this week you're seeing 2 clinics. You're seeing the clinics at the vaccine distribution at Billings Clinic at 3 different times. And then for the first time, Riverstone will be doing a community vaccination clinic on Thursday afternoon. I will also preface this with they're all full. So that happened almost immediately when we released the information this morning. And so all of those appointments are taken for this week. Billings Clinic did report a fairly significant call volume this morning. And when I say significant, it was 27,000 calls came in. And so you can see that our community is really wanting to get the vaccine, which we view as very good news. But of course, this supply issue is really very, very challenging. We have had a lot of questions about doing a community vaccination site. We are ready for that. We have plans in place for that. But at this time, with the uncertainty of the supply, it doesn't warrant setting up an additional community site because at this time, both St. Vincent, Billings Clinic, and Riverstone are able to handle the distribution with the volume that we're currently getting. One piece of good news, I think, is that the state of Montana did an update on their COVID site. And so now you are able to see how many Montanans have been vaccinated, and it drills down into the county. So I thought I would just share these numbers with you really quick because this is new information. I also did provide this link for you in your weekly briefing that I sent you just prior to this meeting. But on this new tab, it says the total number of people vaccinated in Yellowstone County. So we've had 13,918 total doses administered, and that is 10,704 first doses and 3,214 fully vaccinated, which means they've received both of their doses. So that's really good information. If you're interested in that, it's on the same COVID-19 site. And like I said, I attached it for you here. And we continue to see our numbers go down slightly of COVID cases. And so we view that as good news as well. We're getting kind of past that holiday surge. So this is good news for both our hospitals are well within their capacity and doing well. And our cases have dropped. Active cases right now in Yellowstone County are at 929, which is below 1,000 last week. I think this is the first time I've seen it go below 1,000 in a while, so I was excited for that. And we had 250 cases reported over the last reporting period of a week. So that's kind of the update for today. I will take some questions. I was also going to give you one other number. In the state of Montana, there's been a total of 77,000 plus people vaccinated, with about 14,000 getting both shots already. So that number, you're going to be able to see it rise as time goes on. And again, we're just really in a supply challenge right now. And as soon as we can start to get more supply, we know that people want to get the vaccine.
Very good. Thank you, Melanie. Do you know whether the drop-off this week was a one-time blip, or is this part of a larger, unfortunate trend, or do we know?
Well, as of right now, it's a one-time, but it's also being driven by how much vaccine comes into the state. And so knowing that rotation is happening, there is a possibility it could happen again to us in another one of our other distribution sites. So at this point, we don't know if it's going to be a continuous problem, or if we're going to be getting more vaccine in, then it would not be as big of a deal. But this week, it was pretty significant.
Thank you. Other questions for Melanie? Councilmember Ronning?
Thank you. Melanie, for those that received the first vaccine and they're in a waiting period for the second vaccine, are we seeing them able to get that in a timely manner, and when they're supposed to get that second vaccine in a timely manner? Or what is there the possibility that those that have already received the first vaccine won't get their second vaccine in a timely manner?
Thank you, Mayor and Councilwoman Ronning. What we're seeing is we do have the second shots in hold. So we are not seeing anybody not being able to get their second shot. They've gotten the appointment. Those vaccines are being held for second doses in our community. And so at this time, we don't see any reason why people would not be able to get their second dose.
Thank you. Councilmember Purington?
Thanks, Melanie. Just a quick question. I think you said something like 30 some odd thousand have received that in Yellowstone County, Billings, and 77,000 across the state. Mm-hmm. So I assume that those are getting allocated based on population or percentage of COVID cases.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Councilwoman Purington. Yes, the way that it's figured is by population, and Yellowstone County is 15% of the population for the state, so that's why you're seeing that number. That's how those numbers are coming through.
Very good. Any other questions for Melanie? Melanie, I don't see any, so thank you very much, and
thank you.
Keep it up, and we'll hope for more vaccine.
And we'll keep you posted, and you can expect that press release every Monday from us from now on. So.
Very good. That's very helpful. We appreciate that.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. We do have minutes to approve. The minutes for the December 14th meeting are pending, as well as the January 11th meeting. But we do have the minutes for the December 21st, 2020 meeting. Is there a discussion or a motion relating to the December 21st minutes? Councilmember Purington?
I move to accept the minutes from December the 14th, 2020.
Thank you very much. Is there a second for that motion? Councilmember Boyette? Any discussion or corrections? If not, all in favor of the motion, which is for approval as drafted, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are all members of the City Council. Motion passes unanimously. Next item up are
Excuse me, Mayor. This is the city clerk. That was for the December 21st minutes, correct?
That's correct, December 21st.
Thank you.
We do not have any, or I don't have any council courtesies tonight, but maybe other council members do. Are there any council courtesies? Council member Ronning?
Excuse me, Mayor. I think the motion was actually December 14th is what Purington made.
I apologize. I did not catch that.
Our document does say December 14th is ready, 21st and 11th are pending. So is that not accurate?
Yeah, that is not accurate. There was a memo from Denise correcting that. So what was distributed are from the December 21st meeting. Councilmember
Purington.
Was that your intent, the minutes that had been distributed the 21st, December 21st?
That's correct.
And Councilmember Purington, that's consistent with your intent on your motion?
Yes.
Okay. And the second, Councilmember Boyette as well. Let's just revote, not leave any question about that. So these are the motions for approval of the December 21st minutes. All in favor, please raise your hand again. And motion does pass unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any council courtesies? Councilmember Ronning.
Thank you. I just wanted to invite everyone to join us for Human Trafficking Awareness Month, which is January of every year. And the Yellowstone County Area Human Trafficking Task Force will be sponsoring and hosting a free screening on Facebook on our public page, and that's this Thursday night at 8 p.m. The documentary that we'll be screening is Shattered Dreams, Sex Trafficking in America, and it's free for everyone to watch. Our public Facebook page is Human Trafficking in Yellowstone County, so you're free to join us for a free screening of this documentary film this Thursday night at 8 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council courtesies? Councilmember Yakowicz.
Thank you, Honor and Council. And maybe, Honor, you could add to this, but I understand the Symphony is having a ribbon cutting, some kind of a grand opening on Friday at 11:30.
Yeah, that would be for their new space across from Desmond's, across the street from the old Wendy's, or what I still refer to as the old Wendy's, the McDonald building, down from Bockles on the corner. Redevelopment of an important corner downtown. So that's exciting. Thank you very much, Councilmember Yakowicz. If anybody would like to attend, please do. Any other council courtesies? I don't see any, so we do not have any proclamations. Any council reports from boards or other groups that members of the council serve on behalf of the council? Don't see any of those. We'll turn it over then to our Assistant City Administrator, Kevin Iflin, for the City Administrator report. Kevin?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a couple of quick things tonight on the legislative update and things that hearings that are going on this week that we kind of want to make Council aware of. The first one is House Bill 187, sponsored by Dave Fern, and it is basically providing for a local option sales tax. There is a hearing on that on January 27th at 8 a.m. If anybody is interested in testifying on that, please let me know or let Mr. Kukulski know, and we'll get you scheduled for that. Senate Bill 77 has been the other one. Tom McGilravy on that one, and we're still watching that, monitoring that, seeing what's happened, but a lot of communication going back and forth between the Montana Leagues of Cities and Towns and other cities across the state in regards to that Senate bill that's happening currently. And from that, we're still monitoring about 39 different bills and about 145 that are in the hopper. We'll see if they make it anywhere from there. So very active on the legislative front. And like I said, Mr. Kukulski is up there kind of doing some proactive stuff on a possible bill regarding the Department of Corrections transfers out of the local jail system. So we'll keep you posted on that one. So that's all I have for the legislative update. We do have an update on the library community room, and I think Gavin is on here somewhere and is going to kind of provide you an update there. So I see you just popped up. So Gavin, I'll let you take over.
Good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor. Been a while since I've been out in front of you all, so I'm going to kind of give you a larger overview. As a press release that went out last week stated, we will be opening up the facility February 1st. We'll have some public computers available. We'll have still online programming. We'll still go through the curbside services. This will be a grab and go concept where you can come in, grab your materials. We do ask for a 30-minute duration only. If there are any questions about that, I can answer any. But the real big point of it is the community room. So as you can imagine, we've had some delays with this project, some that were foreseen, some that were not. When COVID-19 hit across the nation and the world, this type of technology became a very hot commodity. So there were a lot of back orders. So we've had anywhere from just the supply chains to the shipping. At one point, some of the materials were caught in customs for a while. Then we've had to have rescheduling. So we've had delay upon delay upon delay. What it does is it brings us to today, and basically are waiting for a few different components of technology that will allow the BPL to speak with the courts. So there's a switch system, and I don't pretend to know all of this or understand it, but apparently there's a switch system that when the courts are in operation, we don't want that switch turned to on. We want to make sure that the privacy and security of the courts is always kept intact. So because of that, we had to figure out a new way how to have the community room downstairs speak with Channel 7 or Community 7 television. They have worked that out. We do have that technology coming probably within the next couple of weeks. What will happen then is thus. The remaining equipment, like I said, will be in about 2 weeks. AVI, who is installing all of this equipment, will need a few days with courts to put everything in, to test it, and then to train personnel to run that equipment. It'd be the same thing over here at the library. So think about another 2 weeks after that. So we're at about a month right now. Upon the completion of all of that, once AVI has been able to test the 2 locations to make sure everything is secure, the city clerk will have to run their own tests to make sure that we can do what we're doing right now through all of that equipment. What I would say is this. I think it's a very accurate timeline to say that by the end of February, if not mid-March, somewhere around there, everything should be ready to go. That's also, making sure that AVI can stick to their timelines because they have been very gracious through this and fitting us in when they can, especially with all of these delays that were obviously out of their control. I don't want to sound like an apologist for AVI, but they have done some really good work thus far. And it's been kind of a nice professional partnership. I think once it is all installed, you'll see that there are a lot of opportunities for that community room. The final thing I just want to touch on real quick is that during this time of the library being closed to the public, we did do an energy assessment. And based off of this energy assessment, this came through Northwestern Energy, we found that we were able to change out a bunch of the lighting in here that are going to have significant savings right away. 2 basic light bulbs. Basically, we have the dimmable light bulbs that once switched out, which we have switched out approximately about 400 of them, with about 400 more to be received this week. We'll save about $339 annually on a 40-hour week. which the payback is about 3.27 years or so. In the non-dimmable lights, which is the majority of them, we have over a $2,000 savings a year, and it's about just shy of 8 months when we'll actually start seeing those rewards happen. So that's kind of a big overview of what's happened in the library. We're opening up the community room. We're on track, not without delays, but we're on track there. And then also the energy assessment savings. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on any one of those three issues that I discussed.
Thank you very much, Gavin. Kevin, we do have, I suspect, a few questions for Gavin. Is it your preference that we address those now or wait until you're done?
If we could just address those now, and then I'll wrap it up real quick.
Okay, thank you. Gavin, can you just remind us what the equipment is that's going into the community room and what that will do and look like?
Yeah, so all the equipment that has been implemented into the room is all audio visual. So a lot of different cameras, a lot of different sound systems. Again, I don't pretend to understand all of it, but essentially what it allows for the audio or the community room to broadcast any type of activity in that space. Obviously, we're going to look up beyond just council meetings. We'll look at programming and what have you. This part that we're waiting for right now, this allows for some remote access from Community 7, so they actually don't have to be in the building while running the equipment, which again, I don't pretend to understand how all of that works.
Okay, thank you. And for purposes of running this meeting or participating in this meeting, what equipment will make that possible? Specifically, will there be multiple screens where we could see people who are participating remotely, for example, and will the microphones be such that everybody can be heard?
Mayor, that's a wonderful question. To my knowledge, yes, we'll be able to do both modalities. So if half of you were to come to the community room, half of you were to still be on GoToMeeting or Zoom or what have you, we can work on both of those. That's why it's really essential after ABI does their install and works with the courts and then with us, that we have the city clerk's office come in, we test it through some quote dummy meetings so that we can ensure that we not only have council both in person and online, but we also have the physical for the public, both in person and online as well.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Gavin before we go back? Councilmember Tricky and Councilmember Neese?
Given what's been going on lately, and I know that in the courtroom there was a metal detector set up in there. Is this something that has been given any thought in the context of the library?
Mayor and Councilmember Tricky, I'm going to defer to Mr. Rifflet.
Thanks, Mayor and Council and Councilmember Chiriki. Yes, we have been giving that some thought. Chief Rich St. John has been working on that plan and coming up with, how to make wherever we're meeting as secure as possible. So yes, those plans have been, in the works, and are, we'll have to wait till we determine what actually is going to happen, where we're going to meet, to fully implement the plan that's going to be laid out.
Thank you, Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. Gavin, just trying to figure this out. So we're connecting the library to the courtroom. So does that mean we can meet in the courtroom at the same time as well as meeting in the library, and everyone can be talking and communicating back and forth? So we're actually expanding, we're taking our current space and adding to it with the library. We're not actually just moving everything over to the library. Do I understand that correctly?
So Mayor and Councilmember Neese, that is my understanding as well, that yes, there will be actually a new location with all the capabilities as the council chambers right now.
So we can stay, we could stay in the council chambers, and then the public could come to the library and we can hear them back and forth. Do I understand that to work that way as well?
Mayor and Councilmember Neese, I believe that would work. That would be one of the things that we would have to test to make sure that we're not overlooking anything.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Joy, and then Councilmember Neese, or I'm sorry, Councilmember Ronning.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I was just going to ask the question about capacity. If there are 6 council members who are in person and the five not, how that would work in the same space, but it sounds like it's still being worked out.
Yes, Mayor and Councilwoman Joy. Right now, because we had worked out on a plan under the capacity restrictions per the previous governor. With the capacity restrictions rescinded, we are now revising that and looking at that to have a better estimate. Before it was about 6 to 10 public could be at there at one time. We're exploring to see exactly how many more we can add.
Thank you very much, Councilor Barani.
Thank you. Similar type question, Gavin, and mine's about children or parents with children that may want to come. So the 30-minute time limit, I'm guessing that means no children's programming or anything. That would all still be online. But parents with kids could come check out books, could visit the cafe, which I think is going to be open. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mayor and Councilwoman Ronnie, you are correct. The cafe will be open. It will be a 30-minute duration. All of our programming will remain online right now, including not having any third-party programming within the confines of the building. The hope is that every month, as long as we stay on this course, maybe every 6 weeks, we just bring on more and more programs or services. The hope is that by about September, let's say, we're fully functioning back to pre-COVID or March 13th functionality.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Gavin before it goes back to Kevin? Don't see anything, but Gavin, thank you for your efforts. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of you in the next couple months, whether you like it or not. So thank you very much. Kevin, back to you.
Thanks, Mayor. The last thing that I have, there was no ex parte communication for the mayor and council after 3 p.m. today. So that concludes the administrator report, unless you have further questions, and I'll turn it back to you. I think we're on to the consent.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Purington?
Just a quick, Kevin, do you know is that already a bill for the DOC? Does that have a number assigned to it?
Councilmember Purington, that does not have a number assigned to it yet. And that's one of the pertinent, things that we got to start discussing, because we are coming up to some time limits on getting those in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's nothing else for Kevin, we'll move on to our next item of business, which is public comment on non-public hearing agenda items. Tonight, that is anything under item number 1, our consent agenda. That also includes third reading on Project Recode. For anybody from the public who is curious, this is your time to comment on that and anything else under item number 1, the consent agenda. This will be your only opportunity to comment on those items. We'll open it up and ask you if you'd like to be heard to call this number. This will be the same number throughout the evening. So write this down if you want to be heard on other items later. 237-6196. The number again, 237-6196. And that is a Montana area code 406 number. Ask that you keep your comments to less than 3 minutes and tell us your name and address up front. And please turn off or mute your screen, the television or your computer, because our meeting is actually slightly ahead of what you're hearing. It'll be very confusing to both of us if you don't. Denise, I think I heard a phone call. Do we have some public comment?
Yes, Mayor, I have someone on the line. If you'll hold just one moment, please. Hello, are you there?
Hi, I'm here.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you for your call. You've reached the public comment period for tonight's City Council meeting. You'll have 3 minutes to give us your comment. May I have your name and address, please?
This is Dan Brooks with the Billings Chamber of Commerce, 815 South 27th Street.
Okay, go ahead, Dan.
All right, thanks. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I know I've had a number of conversations with many of you offline throughout the pandemic, but I think this is the first time that I've ever actually weighed in through the calling number. So I feel like I need to announce myself as a longtime listener and first-time caller. I just want to make a quick comment on item 1I, and that's the Castle Rock Master Plan. I want to say briefly, thanks to all the stakeholders, the Heights residents, Heights organizations, Parks Department, and many others that really worked to craft a great plan that really fits the needs of the residents of not only the area, but of Billings in general. We look at this as more than just a Billings Heights amenity and benefit, and see it really as a destination amenity that when we talk about the need to recruit and attract the next generation of workforce that our businesses need to grow and to thrive, this is one of those things that younger next generation is looking for. So for our businesses and residents, we encourage your support, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Okay, Mayor, it seems like that is all the calls that we've received.
Okay, thank you very much. Then we will close the public comment period on non-public hearing items. Items later in the agenda do have public hearings, so you'll have an opportunity to comment at that time on those items. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda and specifically ask if there are separations for a separate discussion and vote. Councilmember Ronning.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to separate out 1J for discussion.
Thank you very much. And any other separations? Councilmember Brown. Councilmember Brown, there you go.
Thanks, Mayor. I will be abstaining from 1M, 1 and 2. I had my one exception for the year, so.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll separate item 1L, which is the third and final reading on Project Recode. Any other separations? Councilmember Purington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will abstain also from 1M2.
Okay. Any other separations? Seeing none, we'll move ahead with the non-separated items. Is there a motion? Councilmember Yakovich.
Thank you, Honor and Council. I would like to make a motion to approve all except J, L, M1, and M2.
Motion is for approval. Second, Councilmember Ewalt, I saw. Motions for approval of the non-separated items. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Ewalt.
Thank you, Mayor. I got a question on 1D as in dog. Goes along with the animal shelter. So when I'm looking at the fiscal effects, am I to assume that it's the city pays $300,000 for February 1, 2021 through January 31, 2022, and then we get reimbursed $24,000, but then it goes on and it says that after that it's going to increase by $330,000 for 6 more positions? Is that true? Or is this still up in the air, or what? Can anybody give an explanation to that?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor and Councilmember Ewalt. That is not correct. The $330,000 was giving you an idea if the city had to staff that location with 6 different personnel of what that would essentially cost. So no, the $300,000 is the annual payment. The Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter basically leases out the building for a yearly rate of $24,000. And then from there is an escalator in the contract based on the CPIU. So that $300,000 will increase by the CPIU rate.
Okay, follow up, Mayor, please.
Please.
So the 330 was just an example of what it would have cost if we were actually supplying the employees. So are we the loan financiers for this program?
Councilmember Ewalt, yeah, the 330,000 was an example if the city had to staff it with 6 people of what it would cost us. So kind of giving you what your bang for your buck here. And yes, we're the loan financiers of this, but recently, and I've got Trinity Chavez here that could speak more to it, Yellowstone County did contract with the Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter to do some very limited services, I believe, but you can certainly answer that more fully if you would like. So.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just comment that, of course, the animal shelter does get an awful lot of in-kind support from volunteers and also donations and some other grants. But when it comes to government money, it's the city. Any other questions while we've got Trinity up? Councilmember Neese?
I just want to give them a shout out to them because they do a terrific job with the animals in the city. I've gotten all my dogs from there, so I guess I am kind of benefiting from this vote. But they do a great job. So I would encourage anyone who's looking for a pet and animal, go there. You can look at them online. I really appreciate the service they provide us.
Thank you, Councilmember Neese. I'm just going to ask Trinity, while we've got you here, give us a quick, your elevator speech. Where are you located? How can people support you? How can they adopt animals? Anything else you want to tell us?
Thank you, Mayor Cole and Council. I am excited to join you this evening. This has been a project that's been a long time coming. Kevin and I joke often about getting it off of our to-do list because it was long overdue, and so I appreciate your time and your attention. The animal shelter is located at 1735 Monad Road, so we are in the same physical building as the Billings Animal Control Department, but as we say, we function separately. We are your contractor for sheltering services. They take care of more of the city ordinances and things like that. We, on average, this year, we obviously saw a decrease as we closed our doors with the rest of the world for a period of time, moved to appointment only, but on average, we take in about 5,000 animals a year. So we are the largest shelter in the state of Montana. Predominantly, we see dogs and cats, but we also see anything that is not hoof and clove animals. So rabbits, guinea pigs, ferrets, chickens, ducks, turtles, you name it, we've seen it. So we shelter anything that you can keep in home as your pet within city limits. As Kevin Iflin did mention, we historically have been the sole contractor for sheltering services for the city of Billings. We did apply for the RFP to shelter dogs for the county. We have been awarded that and are currently in contract negotiations. We do not see that making any impact as to the services we provide to the city, but rather to extend our reach so that the residents of Yellowstone County and Billings all can go to one place if they've lost an animal and look for their dogs there. So we're very excited about that. There's a lot of confusion in our community about where to go, and we're excited to alleviate that. If you want to support the shelter, we always say adopt, volunteer, foster, and donate. So adopt from us, volunteer your time, donate your time, your treasures, your talents, and then of course fostering animals. We send about 500 to 600 animals out to foster care every year. Those animals are injured or too young for adoption. They're nourished in their foster homes and come back into the shelter for adoption. So fostering and volunteering, if you cannot donate your time or open your doors to an animal, is another great way to impact the shelter. Thank you, Kevin.
Councilmember Yakowicz, you had your hand up. You're covered? Okay, thank you very much. Anything else on this item? Councilmember Roddy.
Thank you. Like Councilmember Neese, my dogs are all rescued as well. So Trinity, you have been doing an amazing job at the shelter, and I agree with what all the praise that has been said about the work at the shelter also. I know, tough subject, and I don't think you're going to be surprised that I'm going to ask you this question because it's one I've asked you before. When you have the opportunity, could you actually give us the numbers, and you can send it to me in an email or send council in an email, of how many animals are euthanized by the shelter each year? And if you could break those apart by animal, I'd appreciate that. I know it's a really good, it's a good promotional tool to say that the rate is down 75%, but I'd still like to see those numbers. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Cole and Council. I can share those with you tonight if you would like. I actually do have them up. I have to pull them up because I don't like to make estimates ever. But as you said, I am actually very grateful for the question. It is sometimes a touchy subject, but I am proud to say that in the last 2 years, we have not had to euthanize animals for space or population at the shelter, and that has been the first time in its existence. So the animals that are euthanized at our shelter are euthanized for 2 reasons only. That is severe injury and illness, or severe aggression that cannot be corrected through trainers in our community. So we are very, very proud of that. We are benchmarking at a 95% live release rate. Live release rate is a little bit different than the question you're asking, and so I'd like to just take a moment to explain that. Live release rate actually counts against us if an animal dies of natural causes in the shelter. So let's say that we have a dog that's hit by a car and is brought into the shelter. We try to save it and are unsuccessful. That actually counts as against us. The reason my staff asks me all the time, why do we count it that way, is because it holds us accountable for providing the best standard of care. So animals are not dying in our care of not being taken care of, not being properly vaccinated, things like that. So that's why we talk about live release rate, because it encompasses a little bit more. So we have a 95% live release rate. The national benchmark to try to achieve is 90%. So that 5% are animals that die in our care from natural causes, as well as euthanasia. But to specifically answer your question, I don't know if I leave screen when I do this, but the euthanasia for 2020 is 30 dogs and 120 cats. So just to kind of compare that to before I arrived there, not to say that it is all my doing, my staff is amazing and wonderful, but to compare that to 2017, 30 dogs compared to 110 dogs in 2017, 120 cats compared to 563 cats in 2017. So as you can see, those numbers are substantial. My staff is working their tails off, pun intended.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trinity.
We appreciate that, and we just want to remind all animal owners to spay and neuter their animals, especially their cats. Thank you very much. Okay, I think that looks like the end of that item. So we're back. We do have a motion before us for approval of non-separated items. Any further discussion or questions? Councilmember Neese.
Thank you. I just also want to join what Dan Brooks said is thanking the staff, the community, the Heights Task Force for getting involved and coming up with a great plan with a lot of community involvement. So be looking forward to what the Heights Task Force will be doing to help the city as much as they can, Business Association up in the Heights, to also help to try and get this project, the dirt, moving as soon as possible. So again, thank you all, and Councilmember, I appreciate the support and the approval.
Thank you very much. And your other discussion, Councilmember Running.
Thank you. I did have a question for Chief St. John on the domestic violence grant.
Go ahead.
So
I'm sorry, 1H, 2020 domestic violence grant.
Yeah, 1H. Chief St. John, we hear often about how Ben Halverson with the city attorney who's the lone prosecutor for domestic violence crimes. We hear often about how overloaded he is and how many cases are on his plate. We don't always hear how many, even though you do a good job of letting us know, but could you share a little bit about how those cases are in direct correlation to the number of cases that Detective Nash or Officer Nash has to investigate as the lone officer investigating these domestic violence crimes for the police department?
Yes, Mayor, Council, good evening. Thank you for the question. We do have a lone investigator, which is Katie Nash. She's probably touching maybe a third more cases than Ben is, mainly because not all of those get prosecuted. And she is also working on cases that may be referred back from the county attorney. She consistently is asking for additional staffing, additional help. We're trying to address things as best we can through grant money, but she's doing a great job with the very, very difficult task on a very serious issue that we're dealing with.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion on the motion? Motion is for approval of non-separated items. Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion for approval, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are all members of City Council. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Brings us then to our separated items. First one would be item 1J, resolution approving Yellowstone County 2020 Hazardous Materials Response Plan. Councilmember Rotting, that was your separation. Would you like to start us?
Sure, thank you. So we had some council discussion through email prior to tonight's council meeting, and there were some comments and questions about how this hazmat plan comes together, how we move forward. Some of the conversation specifically had to do with the possibility of joint partnership coming together between the city and county, and maybe other partnerships to pay for or hire a PIO. And just wanted to give Casey Williams an opportunity to address the plan and maybe answer some of those questions that council members had as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Casey Williams, our Disaster Emergency Services Coordinator for the city and the county. Welcome to our meeting. Can you just, in a nutshell, tell us what the plan is? I think we've all had a chance to read it, but also you did send an email in which you addressed a couple issues. PIO, EOC, lots of acronyms here. Maybe you can start with explaining what some of those acronyms are and tell us a little bit more. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. As everyone knows, I got here in 2019, so this is year 2. Our original or the previous hazmat plan for the county was adopted in 2011. And as it turns out, in 2019, the Emergency Planning Community Right to Know Act, which is a law that was passed by Congress that regulates hazmat reporting and response, they added 9 elements that a community's hazardous materials plan had to have. And our 2011 hazmat plan did not contain those 9 elements. So we worked with the state of Montana and got a grant, a little bit over $10,000 worth of grant money to help us hire a consulting firm to bring our hazmat plan for the city county into federal standards. It's a law that every jurisdiction in the United States that has an LEPC has to have a hazmat plan for that particular jurisdiction. We're no different. And those plans have to meet the current federal and state guidelines. And this 2020 plan now puts us in full compliance with the EPCRA and other state and federal guidelines. So this plan does that. And it came about in that we could not continue with our old plan, and it needed a significant major rewrite to come into standard. So that's why we had to completely rewrite it. It was put together by members of the LEPC, which includes over 100 members of our business in both private and public sectors. That includes all of our response agencies, all of the energy companies, the rail companies, the military, the government. I've seen Mayor Cole there quite a few times. So everyone did have an opportunity to chime in, and obviously we worked real close with our City of Billings hazmat team, as well as the regional hazmat team, which is also housed at the Billings facility. The conversations that we had earlier today via email surrounding PIO, which is Public Information Officer, and EOC, which is Emergency Operations Centers. Although those are outstanding conversations, and I would love to talk about those as much as you want to, and that's fine. There's somewhat of a separate issue other than the hazmat plan says that we need to have a public information officer for any major hazmat incident, and we are required to have an emergency operations center. Currently, We do have an emergency operations center. It's located in the basement of Fire Station 1, and it's a 17-foot by 30-foot room. And on a major hazmat, I need to get about 60 people in a room. And we have 5 chairs. It is woefully under spaced, under technologied, and that has been identified in every after action report that I can find in the history of DES being part of this community. And then public information officer, I think with all of the things that we've seen here lately with COVID, that's just a needed position, but neither of those really affect the hazmat plan that we're asking the city to go ahead and sign off on today.
Okay, thank you very much, Casey. We appreciate your efforts on putting together the plan and your efforts in responding to COVID-19. Any questions for Casey before I ask for a motion on this item? Not seeing any. So do we have a motion relating to this item? Councilmember Running.
Thank you. I move to approve the Yellowstone County 2020 Hazardous Materials Response Plan.
Thank you very much. And Councilmember Boyette has 2 fingers up. Discussion on the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are all members of the City Council. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And Casey, you got what you needed. Thanks very much. Okay, we'll move to our next item is item 1L. This is the third final reading ordinance approving Project Recode. I separated that item because I wanted to make a rather technical amendment, which I described in an email I sent around to council members. But before I do that, we should find out if there is a motion on the floor relating to this item at all. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'll make a motion. The zoning code amendment was initiated by the Yellowstone County Board of Planning per its authority under BMCC 27-1502 in 2017 and reviewed by the Zoning Commission before being forwarded to the City Council. After having conducted a public hearing and having passed this ordinance on first reading on December 14, 2020, and on second reading on January 11, 2021, and having considering the Zoning Commission's report and its recommendation for approval and adoption of the findings of the 10 criteria, as well as written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve Project Recode zoning code amendment, including Exhibit A as modified by approved Exhibit C, and Exhibit B, which consists of Exhibit B2 draft zoning maps as modified and approved by Exhibit B1 final map updates on this third reading.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Yakovich. Councilmember Brackett, you're muted. Okay. Councilmember Brackett is having a problem finding the demute, but his 2 fingers constitute a second. So thank you very much. So we do have a motion before us. Again, the reason I separated, this is described in an email to the council, but it pertains to just a technical clarification. In section 27-303, subparagraph C, site access for lots. And I don't know whether, Wyeth, you have this on a screen ready to go. If so, feel free, but it's fairly simple. I can explain it if we do not have a visual of it. But that section is what requires that if there is an existing or planned alley system, lots shall be provided vehicle access from the alley. And Councilmember Ewald raised the point during the week that although the intent of this was to also allow a homeowner or developer to put in a front driveway, as long as there was also an alley access, that was not crystal clear from this language. And so I raised that with staff, and staff suggested making the change that you see on the screen in the second sentence, so that the new second sentence would read, lots with or without alley access may be provided a curb access for vehicle access to the street pursuant to city curb cut and driveway standards in BMCC 6-1208. So with that change, it'll be clear that a lot with alley access can still have a front driveway as long as they meet those other standards. So that's the purpose for that. And I would then make the motion to amend the underlying motion and Exhibit C to include this technical language, which I'm told will not require another hearing. Is there a second? I see Councilmember Ewald had his fingers up. So we've got a motion and a second for the amendment. Discussion on the motion before we proceed to a vote on it. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Joy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I think we did discuss this quite often and quite a bit, that curb cuts on the sidewalk make it more dangerous for pedestrians. Particularly high profile vehicles have a very difficult time seeing out onto the sidewalk when they back up. When they back up into traffic, which say on Lewis Avenue, Broadwater, Central Avenue, some of those streets have alley access, but they do create a point of conflict for pedestrians and children on bicycles that most often than not are on the sidewalk. So I just would, I'm not sure if I will support this amendment, because the point of having the access to the back is that you're not creating more points of conflict with pedestrian and bicyclists. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we appreciate that note of caution. Again, that our understanding is it doesn't change the substantive effect of the language, because the ability to put in a front driveway was already the original intent, but it does clarify that. Further discussion, Councilmember Yakwich.
Thank you, Honor Council. I just briefly really support it. I like it's gives a little bit of an option. It's not that they have to, but they may be given the opportunity. And I just want to conclude with, I really appreciate what Nicole mentioned last meeting. They're going to look at this over time. They're going to give it a chance to sift through it, make some changes. I'm very confident that any glitches will come forward. So I'm just looking forward to vote for this, make it have it go forward, and have a great success for our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion on the proposed amendment? Councilmember Purington.
Well, I want some clarification on that one, as this one was clarified. But moving forward, I think we were talking about the next, 4 months, 7 months, 12 months. Can amendments be brought forward at those times, or is it just to adjust mistakes?
Yeah, Councilor Purington, I think what the point is that what's currently before us is the amendment itself. So appreciate that question, and maybe we can get staff to comment on that a little bit later. But I'll respect Councilmember Neese's objection just to focus us on this amendment right now. As important as that question may be, Councilmember Ewald.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to support it because there's a lot of infill in these types of lots around town. And if you drive around, a lot of the garages do have street access. And now we've got a ordinance that they assess all the residents in town for snow removal. And we're taking the garbage trucks out of the alley, so there's nobody to break. If we get this year, it's been great. Shoveling snow hasn't been an issue, but there's been years when it was an issue. And So then when the snow melts and it gets muddy and you go in and out of the alley, you track all that mud out onto the street also. So it makes it a lot more convenient for the people that own the homes. They're paying to get the street cleaned and so they can pull off the street into their driveway. So that's my main reason for it. And it matches a lot of the infill in the existing areas in town that still have alleys. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Any other discussion before we move to a vote on the proposed amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of the proposed amendment, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are Council Members Cole, Trickey, Boyette, Shaw, Joy, Purington, Neese, Ronning, Yakwich, and Ewalt and Brown. So the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. You now have the amended motion, underlying motion of Councilmember Brown in front of you. Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm speaking to the motion in general. While there's a lot of things I don't like about the Recode project, one of the more concerning things I have about the code changes is regarding the conversion of residential zone changes. The code is not just converting from RN to N, but they're actually doing zone changes, changing the approved use of the property without notifying or directly notifying those property owners as a current zone change requires. I don't know all the impacted properties, but I do know personally that I've been involved in some while serving on the Heights Task Force. And when neighbors petition the city against these zone changes, the city and the council at that time supported those neighbors and did not award those zone changes. Much like an opt-out fee, citizens are busy every day. We saw that complaining that during the Recode process, people felt disenfranchised. They didn't participate. But a lot of that's just the way the meetings and structures are. But what my concern here is by the time these residents find that these changes are made, it'll be too late. And my hope is that these changes will not be to the point where they can't, cause any harm to their neighborhoods. However, I do want to state, in spite of my disagreements, many that I mentioned, I would be remiss if I don't mention how grateful I am that we've made this better than we first saw it in November. I know it will pass without my vote. I want to thank the staff, the community members, my fellow council members for working over the last 3 months to make significant changes as we move this forward. In November, when I first asked for a delay on this, I didn't say that we would make this perfect, just more perfect. I think we've accomplished that. However, I still can't support it as is, and I look forward to working with the council and the staff in future meetings as we have to make changes to this, as it's brought before us as we find different changes that need made. So with that, I want to thank you, and I'll wait till we vote to cast anything else.
Thank you very much. I'm going to recognize Councilmember Ewald, and when he's done, I'm going to ask Wyeth to come back to Councilmember Purington's question, which I think is in order now very much on the underlying motion of how the review process might work in the future and as we come back to this. But Councilmember Ewald, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I was going to reiterate what Councilmember Purington said, because I don't understand, the way I understand it, any issues in the 4, the 7, and the 12-month time period have to be complaint driven or something that comes up, not that we can just arbitrarily bring amendments to it. I'm not sure what the process is, but the way I understand it, it's got to be complaint driven. Like if somebody comes in for a building permit or something like that, and something happens and there's no real good answer for it, then that would come to those 3 different times. So yeah, it'd be great if we could hear what Wyeth has to say about that.
Okay, thank you very much. Wyeth Friday, our planning director, if you're prepared to comment on that question of how that process might look like going forward, please do so.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council, and certainly Nicole can chime in here with me as well if I get off track. But so yeah, our plan and Nicole had kind of outlined it at your past meeting was to basically at the 4-month time frame after the code goes into place, which potentially would be the end of February. So we'd be looking at probably a June come back would be the first 4-month report back. And then we propose to come back at 7 months and then at the year is really multiple, I guess, multifaceted, but the sort of two things. So as the code gets implemented and we start to use the code, as staff uses the code, as the community uses the code, and if we run into issues, whether it's a staff, we discover something that needs to be addressed, or we are working on a project with folks in the community, developers, builders, et cetera, we will be building a list of those items. If we have items, if it's a spelling error or something like that, that's kind of the lowest level bucket, not as a significant issue compared to like a major code issue that we run into where the major ones we would be bringing forward to the council through a process, each one for, to potentially have consideration of amendments versus if we have a bunch of small grammatical typos, smaller items where we would just build up a list of those and bring those to you in an action where you would just make, half a dozen small changes. We're looking at separating it into those two categories. So that's kind of the approach we have. I guess I would caution that the only concern we have, and we've been talking with other communities about this, including the city of Denver that does this routinely with their code, continues to check, and they call it kind of a maintenance of the code, is that we don't want to get into a situation where we're just constantly coming back and having, rewriting chunks like right away. We really need to use this code and see how it's going to work. So I guess that's kind of the idea we're approaching it from, and certainly we'll communicate with the community and hear from them as they start to use it. And we actually have quite a few developers and folks that are very anxious to use it and are going to this year in the construction season and in the development season here as we get later into the year. So we'll have some things going on right away that we'll be able to test out in certain sections of the code.
Thank you very much, Wyeth. Can you just address Councilmember Ewald's question, which was, is there anything that would prevent the council from making substantive changes in the future because somehow we're going to be bound to only changes triggered by a complaint coming from the public?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if the council, and the council has done this in the past with our current code, has heard about something, seen something through a process and had a concern and has brought it up, made an initiative to the rest of the council and said, this is something I think we need to address. And then you all have moved forward and we've done that. In fact, Councilmember Ewald was involved and spearheaded one of those regarding gymnastics and the allowance of gymnastics facilities in neighborhood commercial zoning. That was an example of how that's been done under the current code. So certainly that can happen as well. It's certainly not limited to the building development community or staff if there's something that comes to your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. So back to council, just a reminder, we do have a motion on the floor that's been amended, is for approval. Further discussion on the motion. Councilmember Joy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And I would really like to thank the public that participated in this. I do understand that there are always areas where there are differing of opinions, differing of vision. And so I think the council has worked through many of these different issues and made amendments and tried to arrive at something that is very, very doable. I would like to say, though, I really think that upholding the integrity of a public process is important. And one of the things that I noticed in this process is that we had many participants who stayed with us from the very beginning, and we had others that dropped out. And I would really like to say thank you to those task forces that spoke up. Many of our task forces really do have areas where there are specific and difficult questions and issues that zoning can partly address. And I really appreciate their input in this. And going forward, I would really like to see the council just kind of embrace the process that is put in place by these really important things. As I've mentioned more than once, I attended many of the meetings, and that was an important part of what I thought was leadership in the city, was to be a part of the process, to watch and really observe the integrity of that process. Who spoke? How many people showed up? What kinds of things were discussed? So I would like to thank those people who have participated in this process. And I appreciate the work that council members put into their parts of this recode. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion on the motion? Councilmember Rewald.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I just got to commend all the hard work that got put into it and the give and take. Nothing's very easy when you're doing it with this pandemic on virtual meetings. It just makes everything tougher. I think it would have been a lot smoother if we could actually meet in person and get a lot more discussion going on it. I think it would have helped a bunch. It's good. It's still got work to be done, but I think there was a lot of good work put forth and a lot of changes made to make it a better situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion on the motion? I guess I'll just chime in again to reiterate many of the comments that have already been said, to thank staff for their very hard work, the public for its hard work, and to echo Councilmember Neese's comments. This is not a perfect document, but it's come a long ways, and we've made a lot of important improvements, I believe. It's been a gargantuan task, and it's not over, but this is a great start for Billings as we move ahead. And lastly, I just want to express my personal appreciation and pride in this city council for the way it's rolled up its sleeves and dug into something that is truly historic and has been a challenging task, but one that has been accomplished, I think, in a way that you all should be proud of. So thanks, everybody. Any other comments on the motion? Councilmember Ronning.
Thank you. So we've thanked staff, deservedly so, but I just wanted to make sure we gave a shout out and a thanks to the experts that have been with us for 3+ years. And one of those is Elizabeth, who has continued to join us via Zoom and see this in a little box. And she's traveled back and forth between Colorado and Montana many times to be here. So wanted to make sure we thank them for their level of expertise that they brought to this really daunting project that the city took on. So just want to make sure we thanked them as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments before we proceed to a vote on the underlying motion? If not, the motion is, the amended motion is for approval. All in favor, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are Councilmembers Cole, Chiriky, Boyette, Shaw, Joy, Ronning, Yakowicz, and Brown. If voting in opposition, please raise your hand. Voting in opposition are Councilmembers Purington, Neese, and Ewald. Thank you very much. And that then brings us to our items on the consent agenda. Item 1M, 1 and 2, the bills December 21 and 28. Is there a motion? Councilmember Yakowicz.
Yes, Your Honor, Council, I make a motion to approve item M1 with the Mr. Brown abstaining.
Thank you very much. And second by Councilmember Chiriky. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are Councilmembers Cole, Chiriky, Boyette, Shaw, Joy, Purington, Neese, Ronning, Yakowicz, and Ewald. Councilmember Brown abstained. Motion passes. Move to item 1M2, bills for the week of December 28. Councilmember Brown and Purington will be abstaining on this one. Is there a motion? Councilmember Yakowicz.
Thank you, Your Honor. Make a motion to approve item M2, as you said, with Ms. Purington and Mr. Brown abstaining.
Thank you very much.
I do have a clarification on Councilmember Purington's abstention. I realized she didn't mention it earlier about why.
Yeah, Councilmember Purinton, can you just give us the basis for the abstention?
Due to family business.
Okay, and what's the name of the vendor?
Purinton Family Trust.
Okay, thank you for spotting that. And Councilmember Tricky had raised his hand for a second, so we've got a second there. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion for approval, please raise your hand. Voting in favor, Council members Cole, Tricky, Boyette, Shaw, Ward, Joy, Neese, Ronning, Yakowicz, and Ewalt, and abstaining Council members Purington. Well, and there is no other oppositions. Councilmember Purington and Brown abstained. That then concludes item number 1, our consent agenda. So we'll move on to our special presentation. A great opportunity here. We really, this is a special time, special opportunity. We'll turn it over to Assistant City Administrator Kevin Iflin to recognize our 2020 retirees. Kevin.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. I will be brief tonight, but we did want to call out just some of the great employees that we've had working for the City of Billings in 2020 that have decided to hang up and retire and move on with their life. So, like I said, I will be real brief. What you're going to see is we've had 48 people retire throughout the City of Billings, and I'll kind of bring up this first slide. And as you can see, we've had a lot of 340-year plus individuals that retired this year, anywhere from Public Works, Division. As we go on down the line, like I indicated, there were 48 different people. Along with that, when you total up all these years of experience, we lost about 1,100 years of experience in the City of Billings this year. So as you know, it's a challenge right now recruiting people and filling those, but I think the city has done a great job with the help of human resources to fill these vacancies that have occurred. But we certainly wish all these people the best of luck as they move on. And as we go down the list here, one more page. Actually might have one more page after this. And then that's the last page, and this will certainly be available so you can look at it in a little bit more detail if you choose to do that. So just want to have a big shout out to all these employees, and certainly thankful for their service to the City of Billings. And that is all I have, Mayor, unless there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Council members, feel free to unmute now and give us your round of applause. If we were in person, we would do that. It's a little harder, but to all those great employees that made up 1,100 years of experience, you will be missed. We appreciate your years and years of service and dedication.
And Mayor, if I just got one more point of clarification, there was not a canine that retired in 2020. It was a 2019 that a canine retired. So we did check on that for Councilmember Ronning.
All right, thank you. And we appreciate the canine also. All right, well, thank you, everybody. That then brings us to our regular agenda. Denise, would you read item number 2?
Yes, Mayor. Public hearing on special review 988, a special review to allow an existing all beverage liquor license to relocate to 2499 Gable Road, a 3,128 square foot building located at Block 4, Lot 3, Senex Park subdivision on a 68,520 square foot parcel of land. King McCall LLC is the owner. Corey Welter Enterprises, Inc. is the agent. Zoning Commission recommends conditional approval and adoption of the findings of the 3 criteria. Action this evening is approval or disapproval of Zoning Commission recommendation.
Thank you very much. Karen is our presenter, I believe, tonight. So Karen, take it away.
Thank you, council members, and Mayor Cole. I'm going to try to share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. This application was actually brought to you in October of 2020. The application was very specific at that time. They were relocating from King Avenue West to Gable Road, which limited the use of this relocation. Everything else about the application is the same except for the applicant who has obtained another all beverage license. It is in a controlled industrial area, and the new zoning under Project Recode would be general industrial, and it would be conforming to that zoning as well as current zoning. Here's the aerial. And some photos for you of the subject property. The unit is to the north. It is formerly a church. This is looking to the east on King and to the west. And then to the northwest on the intersection at King and 25th. The layout they have chosen is basically the same as the previous application, no more than 20 machines. The Zoning Commission held their public hearing and is recommending conditional approval. It is for an existing all beverage license to relocate to 2499 Gable Road. No outdoor seating, music, or announcement system is included. Any new exterior parking lot lighting shall have the full cutoff shields. The applicant will comply with all other codes that may apply, and these conditions will run with the land. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I know that the applicant and his attorney were available for questions as well.
Thank you very much. Questions for Karen? Councilmember Neese.
Thank you. Karen, just a quick question. During your presentation, you mentioned that this was an additional, I thought you said additional license. Is he putting two locations and two casinos in one area like this? Because we approved it the last time, or are you saying that the last license is no longer in play anymore? He's got a different license he's coming to us with.
What happened is in the original application, the applicant was very specific about relocating from one location to another location. And that limited the application at the location. I know that's kind of confusing, but what happened is the original applicant backed out of his lease contract.
Okay.
And a new applicant has applied to get that location. So that is why they're applying again, because they have obviously a different license from another location.
Okay, all right. Thank you for clarifying. That makes sense. And then the location, you said it was I'm sorry, Mayor, mind if I ask one more follow-up question?
Please, go ahead.
Thank you. You mentioned that this was being relocated from another location, and I'm not asking to disclose any confidential information, but can you indicate what area of town it's being relocated from to this area?
And that information wasn't provided for us. Okay. We did ask the applicant, and they chose not to provide that information.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Other questions for Karen or the applicant or the applicant's attorney? Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to make the motion, having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken testimony, which we haven't had yet, have we?
I think we need the hearing first.
Yeah, I got you there. We do need to have our public hearing, but we appreciate your efficiency. But Councilmember Boyette, anything else?
So this is a great neighborhood. This is exactly what we wanted from the very beginning 3 years ago for where we, the public, would like casinos to be. There's no residences around there. This is an industrial area. This is a great place. I encourage this very much.
Very much. Any other questions before we go to a public hearing? Don't see anything, so we'll do that. This is now the public's opportunity to be heard on item number 2 by calling the phone number 237-6196. That number again, 237-6196. Please call that number if you'd like to be heard. We'll ask that you keep your comments to less than 3 minutes. Tell us your name and your address up front. And please mute or turn off your TV or computer because our meeting is ahead of what you're hearing, and they don't sync up. So it'll be very confusing if you don't do that. We'll delay briefly here because of that delay to give you time to call in to that number, 237-6196. Denise, do we have anybody who's called that number?
No, Mayor, I have no callers.
Okay, if you get a call in the next few seconds, please let us know. Assuming that call does not come in, we will go ahead and close the public hearing then and move on. Now, a motion would be in order. Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken testimony in review of the Zoning Commission's recommendations for conditional approval and adoption of the findings of the 3 criteria, I move to approve Special Review 988.
Thank you very much. Second, I see Councilmember Purington. Discussion on the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Motion is for approval. Consistent with the staff recommendation, I do not see any discussion, so we're going to proceed to a vote. Okay, all in favor of the motion for approval, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are Councilmembers Chiriky, Boyette, while just scanning, all members of the City Council, including myself. So the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Brings us to item number 3. Denise, would you read item number 3?
Yes, Mayor. Public hearing on Special Review 989, a special review for an all beverage license with gaming into a 2,500 square foot commercial unit in an existing building, and addition of an outdoor patio located at 3189 King Avenue West, Block 17, Lot 2, Lampman subdivision on a 39,907 square foot parcel of land. DAJ Enterprises LLC owner Josh Benson is the agent. Zoning Commission recommends conditional approval and adoption of the findings of the 3 criteria. Action this evening is approval or disapproval of Zoning Commission recommendation.
Thank you very much. Back to Karen. I believe you have a presentation on this one as well, Karen.
I do. Thank you, Mayor Cole. Special Review 989. This was also a special review that was approved, but it was a little bit different. They were approved in October for a beer and wine license with gaming only. The location is on King Avenue. It's a community commercial zoning district. This particular zoning, when recode is in effect, would be a legally non-conforming use. So previously, it is already approved as a beer and wine license with gaming. An aerial view of the location and a few photos for you. This is looking east on King. This is looking to the north. And this is looking to the north on the west side of the building, which is where they are proposing an outdoor patio seating area. This is the intersection looking west on King. And then a little bit further back, that corner. This is the site plan provided by the applicant. The indoor seating is basically the same as what was previously approved. The addition of the outdoor patio would be what is new on this application. And I have one more site plan, showing where it sits on the building in the outside area. The Zoning Commission did hold their public hearing, and they are recommending conditional approval for the all beverage license with gaming. With this, there will be no outdoor music or outdoor public announcement system. And the lighting on any new lighting on the building or parking area shall have the full cutoff shields. The sign condition is basically to make sure that they comply with whichever sign code is in place when they apply for their sign permit. They shall comply with all other codes that may apply, any limitations, and these conditions run with the land. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Answer any questions.
And there's no presentation by the applicant, correct?
The applicant is available for questions, but they didn't have another presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Purington and Councilmember Ewald.
I just have a question well, Karen, you can probably answer this. With the additional patio, is there any sort of setback or anything from the intersection in the code for setbacks on a patio?
There are restrictions on their patios for outdoor. They have to abide by all setbacks, including clear vision area. So that would include the intersection. There's also a regulation for fencing and buffering for that area. But the setback for clear vision, I think, is the most important that they would have to abide by.
And they do meet that, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ewald.
Thank you, Mayor. Karen, did I understand you saying that if this is passed tonight, it will be a legal non-conforming?
Correct.
What makes it non-conforming?
The legally non-conforming has to do with the separation from residential zone. The new code will require a 350-foot minimum separation with 10 or more gaming machines. So if the number of gaming machines was 9 or fewer, the separation wouldn't apply.
Follow-up question, please, Mayor.
Please.
So the nearest residence would be north. Is that true?
Correct.
And that would get measured to their door of their business or to the corner of the existing building that's a multi-use building?
I believe it's from the use of the casino to the door to the residence.
So it would be to that part of the building that the casino's operating, not their actual entry door?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Question for Karen or Wyatt, they want to chime in about music. It's sort of a standard condition of special reviews now that there not be any sort of outdoor PA system. Why? To me, it seems very doable to have small speakers that point into the use. It brings some life to the street life. Music is good, and there's got to be a way to control it and not blast out neighbors that are hundreds of feet away. Is that something? I'm not advocating for a change on this. I'm sure it's been okayed by the developer, but maybe they want to come back at some point. Do we have rules that would allow music under reasonable conditions that would ensure that the neighbors aren't being bothered? And I don't know who wants to take a stab at that, but
it can. Mayor Cole, in this case, the proximity to the residential and to the intersection, mostly the residential use is the one that would be affected by any kind of outdoor music or announcement system. So that's the limit on this particular case. The previous special review is in an industrial zone. If they had chosen to try and do an outdoor patio, there would have been a different circumstance. There's no residential in the proximity that would be affected. So that's the reason for the condition on this particular application.
Okay, although I do notice it was a condition on the on the previous one we just approved, but it didn't have a patio, so it was all academic. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Karen, I'm not sure how this applies, but with the additional full liquor license rather than just a beer and wine, does that make this any more non-conforming than it would have been with just the beer and wine? And also with the patio on there, that actually reduces the space from them to the trailer court, which is the closest property, right?
Possibly. I'm not sure that there's that much of a distance change. I would have had to do some measurement and some calculating on that particular one.
It wouldn't be significant, though.
No, not significant.
The liquor license, does that have any effect?
So the liquor license and beer and wine have the same restriction, so it's not more. But they do, like I said, they do already have the beer and wine license in place. So the council could choose to not approve the beer and wine, or not approve the all beverage and approve the patio, or vice versa.
Okay, and then a follow-up, Mayor?
Please.
Thank you. Oh, for crying out loud, I forgot what it was now, so wasn't that important, I guess. Never mind.
You can come back to that. There were some other hands, Councilmember Shaw and Councilmember Dees.
Thank you. Karen, just to clarify, so we've already approved the restaurant, the gaming, the beer and wine license. The only thing we're being asked to approve tonight is the patio and switching to an all liquor license. Is that correct?
Correct.
And if we say, for instance, and I'm not advocating for this, but if we say no, they still will be able to build the casino and have wine and beer and all of that. None of that would go away.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Dees.
Thank you, Mayor. Karen, I'm going to follow up on Councilman Brown's question regarding the distance to the trailer court. If I look at, and I just Google mapped it real quick and looked, and if I assume where the corner of the patio is going to be, it's 275 feet to the edge of the trailer, but you said it goes to the door of the trailer, correct?
I believe it goes to the actual building, the structure frontage.
Okay. So
as a door. It's the building itself. Sorry.
Okay. So either way, they're going to be out of compliance. And if this were to be approved, if we don't approve this now, now the recode's passed in 30 days, they would not be able to put a patio in, if I understand correctly, because they can't encroach closer to an unconforming or protected area. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
But if they have only 9 gaming machines in there, they can put their patio in and then later on put in 10 machines?
No, they wouldn't be able to add anything. If they have 9 machines and they add a patio, that doesn't mean they can add more. They can't add to the nonconformity.
I'm sorry. I thought that if they had 10 machines, they were unconforming. But let's say they had 8 machines in there, would they be then legally conforming?
If they have 9 or fewer machines, they would be conforming to the new code without they would be in compliance with that separation. The separation of the 350 feet comes into play if they have 10 or more. So if they keep it at 9 or fewer, they would be in compliance with the new code.
Okay. So that means that if they did that, they could actually build a patio, things like that. Even if we didn't approve it today, they could come back later and apply for a patio. And then after that's all done, could they not then apply for more gaming machines? Or would we have to approve that then at that time? Or
they would not be able to add more gaming machines.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. I understand.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Ronning had her hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question for Josh Benson.
Yes. Am I on audio? Is it working?
The audio is great. We don't see your face, but you tell us if that's a good thing or bad thing.
I don't know how to get the video on, but
we can hear you fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So I guess, Josh, in relation to what Councilman Neese was just saying, and I guess you're the best person to answer this question, how many gaming machines are you planning to have?
So we will have 20 on day one. The patio is really for the restaurant. It's only 2,500 square feet. And if you look at the layout, there's not a lot of seating for the restaurant. So Evan, the owner of Pie Guys, had expressed interest in, a potential patio, which would, add an entertainment element other than gaming to the location. And a patio is something that, it's seasonal. And we'd shut down at 8, whatever time it got dark for the most part. So it's just really to add value for Pie Guys Pizza, but we do plan on having 20 machines in there on day one.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much. Any other questions before we go to a public hearing, either for staff or the developer? Seeing none, we'll proceed then to the public hearing. That phone number again, 237-6196. Anybody is watching and they'd like to comment on this item number 3, please call that number 237-6196. We ask that you keep your comments to less than 3 minutes. Tell us your name and your address, and mute or turn off your television or your computer. Otherwise, it'll be very confusing because the audio does not sync up. Our meeting is ahead of what you're hearing. Denise, do we have anybody who has called 237-6196?
No, Mayor, I've received no calls.
Okay, we will go ahead and close the public hearing. And Councilmember Ewell.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I'd like to make a motion. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony and review of the Zoning Commission's recommendation for conditional approval and adoption of the findings of the 3 criteria, I move to approve special review 989.
Thank you very much. Second, I see Councilmember Neese. Discussion on the motion. The motion is for approval. Is it Councilmember Tricky and Councilmember Brown?
I'm not going to oppose this for this reason, but I do have to say that looking at the design, I was disappointed. As somebody who regularly eats at Pie Guys, I was looking forward to having some place indoors to actually sit down and enjoy one of their pies. And it looks like to me I'm going to have to sit at the bar.
Maybe there'll be a special Chiriki booth after this. Who knows? Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I remembered my question. It was asked and answered for how far it was from the trailer court, but I'm going to speak in favor of this. I know it's odd that we just pass a code and then we make an exception the same night. But this location is unique in that you go across an intersection and there's no curb cuts or anything else anywhere really near this to the trailer court. So I just think it's kind of a unique area, and I think it's a good fit for that area. So I'm going to speak in favor of this.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Any other discussion before we proceed to a vote on item number 3? If not, then all in favor of the motion, which is for approval, consistent with the staff recommendation, raise your hand. Voting in favor are all members of the City Council. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Brings us then to our final item on our regular agenda, item number 4, also a public hearing item. Denise, would you read item number 4?
Yes, Mayor. Public hearing and resolution approving and adopting FY 2021 budget amendments. Staff recommends approval. Action this evening, approval or disapproval of staff recommendation.
Thank you. This is Andy Zeller, our City Finance Director item. So, Andy, if you're with us, please take it away. We can see your screen just fine.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight, bringing to you really first half budget amendments. We didn't do a first quarter budget amendment, and so there's a lot on here. The staff memo, I think, went into detail, pretty good detail on every project. So just kind of a quick recap and then opportunity for any questions. And I believe there's staff on from every department if there's any project-specific questions. I've tried to categorize the budget amendments really, I think, into kind of 4 categories. The first one are prior year projects that have been approved and we're asking to be rebudgeted for FY21. This is the largest amount. There's about 11 million, let me see. Yeah, 11 million in projects here. This includes some parks projects as well as transportation and public works projects. Again, I'm not going to go into them all in detail. The staff memo went through it pretty well, and if you have questions, we're happy to answer them. Like I said, that totals just under 11 million. Again, these were all approved in prior years. The budget's been set aside. We're asking, or the money's been set aside. We're asking for budget authority to spend that again in FY21. The next category I'd say is I've categorized as additional budget authority that came from prior budget savings. This is the wastewater interceptor and then the police priority list that you guys went through at the 12/7/2020 work session. In the case of the wastewater interceptors, the bids came in 2.2 million under what was budgeted. So we're asking for budget authority to spend that 2.2 million on additional work within the scope of that project. And then the police priority list, those, again, you guys went in great detail, I think, work session just last month on that, largely overtime and equipment. These came through savings from unspent budget in prior years. These two projects or programs totaling 1.7 million are items where we've identified new funding or additional funding and are asking for budget for these two items to use that additional funding. These were not known when we were developing the FY21 budget. It's additional work on the 32nd Street West project, and we're asking for the budget authority to spend the money that was reimbursed to us through the CARES Act through the state of Montana. Again, we've been through this project or this element before at a work session. This is really kind of backwards here. We're asking for authority to spend the money that has been spent and reimbursed. There's no net cash outlay to the city. This included overtime, software, computer equipment purchases, staff, PPE for staff, building modifications, including the work at the library that you heard about earlier tonight. And then finally, this is just additional budget authority. This should have been included in the FY21 budget, and I failed to miss it, or I failed to notice it when we were bringing it forward. What this is the departments that have large copiers that are used by really multiple departments, they pay into a copier fund that pays for paper, maintenance, and replacement of those copiers. Those charges to those departments were included in the budget, but I forgot to include the supplies and maintenance costs as well. So I'm asking that you increase the budget authority here so we can pay for paper and maintenance on these copiers. There are no scheduled replacements for copiers in FY21. So this is only maintenance and paper and ink, things along that nature. This is the summary by fund. Total $16 million. It's a very large amount. Again, most of it approved in prior years. We're asking to be rebudgeted for fiscal year 21 to be completed in 21. With that, happy to answer any discussion. Just a reminder, this is a public hearing and staff recommends that you hold a public hearing and approve fiscal year 21 budget amendments.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions for Andy before we go to public hearing? Councilmember Ewald.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple questions. Most of this money has already been set aside on the budget previously, and so we just need the authority to spend it. Is that the case? We're not finding money someplace and it's already been set aside. Is that not right?
Mayor and Councilmember Ewald, that's correct. If you think about it, we budgeted for a project. If it doesn't get bid, if we don't get a contract signed, as soon as we change on to July 1st, the fiscal year ends, that budget authority, it vanishes, and we're asking that it's reestablished so we can bid the project and proceed with the project as originally intended.
Okay, my second question, Mayor, please.
Please.
Thank you, Mayor. And Andy, that 1,100 $1,140,000 for public safety. You said that was in savings over how many years, and how could they save that much money that we're spending now in the police department?
Yep. So I classified it this way because I wanted to make a clarification, because I think there was some misunderstanding, not by council, but by folks outside council when this was discussed on December 7th. As you're aware, the city received reimbursement through the state CARES Act for salaries of our public safety. And that's the major one that we've received. So that's the budget savings we found, where we didn't spend it on salaries because we were reimbursed. We're asking to use that money here. But I wanted to clarify, it is not CARES Act money. These are not CARES Act eligible expenses. And subsequently, we are not being reimbursed for these expenses. That's why these are budget savings found other way, because we've got our salaries paid for through the grant.
Follow up, please, Mayor.
Go ahead.
I thought you said it was CARES Act money that you didn't spend, so now it's a surplus, so it's not CARES Act money. Did I understand that right?
So I'm not sure I understand the question, Councilmember Ewald.
Well, you said the money came in from CARES Act and you didn't spend it all, and so that's the surplus money. Is that what I understood? But then you went on to say, but it's not CARES Act money.
So the city was reimbursed for the salary expense. That's the CARES Act expense. Those were eligible. Those were reimbursed. As a result, the city has cash on hand that was not used for salaries. So we're asking for budget authority here to spend that money on these items that were previously discussed.
Okay, now I kind of understand it, I think. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Other questions for Andy? Councilmember Ronning and Neese?
I just wanted to say, not necessarily a question, but I really appreciate that explanation, Andy, and thank you for that question, Frank, because I think that was unclear at the original presentation back in December, and I think it was misunderstood by the public, and it was challenging for me to understand. So I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. And Andy, and hopefully not to confuse the public and everyone again, but because the other section in here, you do have CARES Act money that you received and you're reimbursing for, and so those are directly being reimbursed back to those departments. Is that what I understand? Because they've already spent the money, and so was that free up budget in all those departments that this is going to?
Mayor, Councilmember Neese. So the CARES Act portion, the $978,100, that's separate and distinct from the police portion.
Okay, right.
The CARES Act portion, we had those were eligible expenses. They were not planned and budgeted in FY21, so they've been reimbursed through the state. Typically, we don't come back to council for budget amendments specific to grants because you guys approved the grants. However, this one came through the state. We didn't directly apply for it, and we haven't brought it to you for official approval. That's why you're seeing it tonight. One, just kind of an abundance of caution, making sure you're well aware of any budget changes. But these are expenses that were directly related to the city's response to COVID.
And so these were quite actually over and above the normal, what normally would have been to the department. And so I can see why. Okay, I understand now why we're actually reimbursing. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thank you. Anything else for Andy before we go to a public hearing? Okay, thank you, Andy. This is the opportunity then for the public to comment on item number 4, these budget amendments. That telephone number 237-6196. Call that number now if you'd like to comment. That number again, 237-6196. Reminder to please keep your comments to less than 3 minutes. Tell us your name and your address. Turn off or mute your television or your computer screen because our meeting is ahead of what you're hearing. The phone number again, 237-6196. 237-6196. Denise, do we have anyone who is called 237-6196?
No, Mayor, I've received no calls.
Okay, thank you very much. If you get a call in the next few seconds, please let us know. Otherwise, we will close the public comment period for this public hearing. Councilmember Yaskovich.
Thank you, Honor. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve and adopt the fiscal year 2021 budget amendments as recommended by staff.
See lots of seconds out there, Councilmember Tariki. Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Motion is for approval consistent with the staff recommendation. Discussion on the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Before we proceed to a vote, any final discussion? Seeing none, we will then move to a vote. All in favor of the motion for approval, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are all members of the City Council. Motion passes unanimously. That then concludes item number 4. Thank you very much. We'll move on then to public comment on non-agenda items. That number, again, 237-6196. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on anything that was not on our agenda tonight of any nature. That number again, 237-6196, as you've heard me say ad nauseum perhaps. Please keep your comments to less than 3 minutes and turn off your computer or mute it or your television screen. I'll ask you for your name and your address up front. The number again, 237-6196, if you'd like to comment on anything not on our agenda tonight. Denise, do we have any callers for public comment on non-agenda items?
No, Mayor, I've received no calls.
Okay, thank you very much. Finally, any items of council initiative before we adjourn for the evening? Councilmember Ronnie.
I don't know, but I'm thinking that maybe we need to make an initiative that Kevin Niflin run the meetings because this is the shortest one we've had in a really long time. So it must be Kevin.
Thank you, Councilmember Ronnie, and I'll make sure and know that Chris knows that too. So,
and as long as we're done in the next 4 minutes, we will be under 2 hours. So if it's okay, I'm going to gavel us to a close. And good night, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your evening for a change. Good night.
Thank you.